Okay, I'm Carol Lisbon, Chair of the Dover Planning Board at 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. This meeting is being conducted via Zoom, given the instructions of the Governor of Massachusetts. So I will do a roll call vote. Jody Shu.
Here.
George Sidgwick.
Present.
Laura Harbottle.
Present.
Sue Hall.
Present.
And we also have Gordon Kinder, our liaison to the Warrant Committee, here tonight. So thank you, Gordon, for coming. And we're going to start with agenda item number 1, which is a continuation of the discussion of the ADU bylaw that we'll be bringing to town meeting in May. So I will turn the meeting over to Laura and Jody.
Super.
Okay, well, Jody, do you want to start off with
Sure.
what you've got?
Sure. Maybe the best thing to do would be to start off with the presentation that we're working on. And I can share that if you can let me share my screen. I think I need to be able to screen share.
Let's see here. Whoops. Hang on a second. Participants. Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right. So if I can get this going. Where is it? Okay. All right. So, Gordon, thanks for being here. Love anybody's feedback. George, this is probably new for you as well, but Carol and Laura and I have been working hard on this for a lot of weeks, and we've got a pretty comprehensive plan to get this draft of the bylaw update to all of the various key players inside the townhouse and leadership of various town boards, including the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, the Zoning Board of Appeals. Carol has already presented this to the Council on Aging. And we do, of course, have let's see, what other meetings do we have coming up, Carol? The warrant.
We have a
committee.
presentation to the Warrant Committee
Warrant Committee
on March 1st.
Yep.
And we'll have a presentation to the board of the Council on Aging in early April to get their endorsement, hopefully.
Yep.
And I think that's it.
Yeah. So we're trying to be as comprehensive as we can be in terms of our outreach and, really welcoming and soliciting feedback from as many people as we can to this draft. And we've gotten really great feedback and have been able to review it on a pretty much line by line basis with Town Council, Nina Pickering Cook. And the draft that we are currently working on, which we made even a few small tweaks today based on some feedback we got from the zoning enforcement officer and also the town health agent, which have been incorporated. It's still going to need, final look over by Nina, but this is a great time to capture any feedback from anybody on this call, which is not so many, but the small and mighty crew. So thank you for being here. So the presentation that we're capturing that I'm going to share with you here is getting to what we will want to show when given the opportunity in front of the Warrant Committee and certainly town meeting and other places before then. I'm not sure of the article number, which is why I left it blank. We want to start off with really just a level set so that everybody who's involved can understand what exactly an accessory dwelling unit is. What are we talking about when we use that term? And to be very specific, we've defined accessory dwelling unit as a residential living unit that's within or attached to a single family dwelling or within a detached structure on the same lot as a single family dwelling. So the image that you see on the right shows the various iterations that might come into play. It's tricky with Dover to use visual imagery because we imagine that attached ADU is largely invisible to a passerby on the street if they can see the house in Dover, because it's literally inside the building. So it might be in a basement or an attic or off the backside of a house. So it wouldn't change fundamentally the character of the house itself. A detached structure is something like a barn that might be converted or a garage with space above it. So I think very typical to the character of the town. Really important to note that an accessory dwelling unit is, as it sounds, self-contained. It has its own sleeping, cooking, and sanitary facilities, provides a separate entrance for the habitants, of the accessory dwelling unit, and notably complies with all the provisions of our zoning, building, and health codes here in Dover. And the accessory dwelling unit, as you can sort of see on this image, but it's not great, is really intended to be subordinate to the principal dwelling on the lot in which it's, it sits, so that it doesn't start to look like there's a second house on the same lot. You can see a little bit of a visual here in these two images. The example on the left is an example of a detached ADU above a garage, whereas the example on the right is really just meant to indicate you really can't actually tell where the ADU might be. It might be on that structure on the right, it might be off the back side of the house, but it's sort of baked into the overall design and architecture of the house. We already in Dover allow accessory apartments in some cases, and I'm using the term accessory apartments because that's what the Dover Code calls these units at this present moment. In section 185.43, which refers to accessory apartments, we approved here in town in about 34 years ago at town meeting in 1986 accessory apartments in Dover. So we're actually kind of an early adopter here in the state. The existing bylaw does allow these accessory apartments to be permitted under certain circumstances, and the oversight body is the Zoning Board of Appeals through the special permit process. And the existing bylaw that's on the books limits construction of accessory apartments to houses that were legally occupied on January 1st, 1985. So nothing since then, and those that have not been substantially enlarged since then. And further caps the total number of ADUs allowed in town to 10% of the total housing stock. So this was a pretty good start, and actually quite advanced, as I said, in the state when it came to the allowance of these accessory apartments. But we think it's a really good time to update the existing bylaw, because housing needs, as everybody knows, are continuing to evolve in town. And everybody knows that, housing affordability in Dover and in all sorts of towns across the Commonwealth is a really big problem, not just affordability, but just availability of housing options. So we've been working for quite a few years now to respond to resident feedback that we've been getting about this very issue, the availability and affordability of housing options in town. And so we laid out three primary goals with this bylaw update. First, to broaden the types of housing available to households of all incomes, ages, and sizes here in town, to address housing affordability and flexibility, but to do so with limited impact on the neighborhoods and residential character of Dover, and also on Dover's town infrastructure, because we have infrastructure limitations like water and sewage and all sorts of other things that we just want to make sure we don't put too much pressure on as we seek to address this issue. And we also wanted to clarify the necessary steps and regulatory processes that would help make approval of ADUs as efficient and straightforward as it possibly can be for residents and builders here in town. Additionally, it's a really good time to be doing this because Massachusetts passed a new state law in 2021 called the Housing Choice Bill that does, well, that's not its real name, but that's a shorthand, that addresses the need for housing across the Commonwealth in general. It was passed in 2021 and signed into law by then Governor Baker. And the new law is notable because it allows municipalities to adopt certain zoning measures like accessory dwelling units by a simple majority under certain circumstances, as opposed to a 2/3 vote, which is normally required for zoning bylaw updates or changes. So those circumstances include, for example, when it comes to ADUs, that they have to be the lesser of 900 square feet or 50% of a primary dwelling size, whichever is smaller. So pretty much max size, 900 square feet. So that's a limitation on size. They have to be allowed by right if they are attached to the primary dwelling. So for example, in those attic spaces or garage spaces, those would be allowed by right if we want to adopt this majority vote at town meeting. But detached ADUs can be allowed by special permit or by right. So that's kind of the landscape of the Housing Choice Bill, which creates this pretty good opportunity to tackle this issue in Dover and to try to look at our existing bylaw and see where we can tweak it to make it a little bit more accessible for residents. And we've been going through a very careful and collaborative process. And you can see here, I won't walk through them all, but begins obviously in 1986 and certainly before then, because I wasn't here, but there was a lot of work done, presumably, to get to town meeting in 1986 and pass what is now section 185.43. But since then, the town's master plan in 2012 explored this issue of increasing the housing options. Again, in 2020, we created a bylaw update that we plan to take to town meeting, but it was with, am I getting that right, Laura? Do I have those dates right? 2020, was that COVID? Am I making my?
Yeah,
no?
no,
Yeah,
that was
2020.
COVID.
It was,
Yeah.
I was like, wait,
Yeah.
how quickly we forget. But it was withdrawn because of COVID and limitations on what was brought to town meeting that year for obvious reasons. Again, in 2021, we developed at the planning board the town's housing production plan, and again indicated the need to increase the types and availability of housing stock in Dover. So we're still at it. In 2021, we tried again to bring it to town meeting, but again, COVID got in our way, so we withdrew it in 2021. In 2021, that same year, the housing choice law was passed, so that was really interesting that that was going on in the background. In 2022, we tried again with some more updates to it, but we withdrew it with an effort to address some ongoing improvements and some input from residents and other aspects of town leadership. So we withdrew it in 2022. And all the while, we've been having public meetings, open hearings. So we've been listening and hearing a lot of people weigh in on this. So this is our 2023, hopefully third time's the charm, or maybe it's more than third time, but to bring this to town meeting. And we think we've got the result of all this hard work is a bylaw that's, truly tailored to the needs of Dover as a community, as opposed to just, a cut and paste from other communities. We feel really strongly about that. We really believe it meets a growing need from residents who are telling us that they're looking for, options maybe to have their adult children move in while they're saving up some money to buy a home, or aging parents who want to have a place to live near their children. So there's just so many applications for this that we think are really important for Dover, including people who work in town who otherwise might not be able to afford a place to stay. The smaller size of these units really does work in favor of, rental rates that are hopefully more affordable for people who are looking to be here. And obviously, we've kept a keen eye on the zoning bylaw, and we'll talk more about that in the coming slides. So here's some of the highlights of what we developed. Obviously, code compliance, all zoning, building, and health codes are baked in, and in compliance with all of them is sort of presumed, but explicitly stated in the bylaw that we've created. Attached ADUs would be allowed by right, whereas detached ADUs would still require a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Owner occupancy is an issue we've been talking an awful lot. And we are baking into this that owner occupancy is required in one of the units, either the primary residence or the ADU itself, except for bona fide temporary absences. The appearance of ADUs is really meant to be subordinate to the principal residence, and it meant to match the style, the architecture. That's the role of the planning board, to really try to maintain for residents this, charm of Dover that we all love, and to make sure that neighbors and neighborhoods are not adversely impacted by the arrival of ADUs in town. One ADU per single family lot, so you're not going to see multiple ADUs on a single family lot, and limitations on size, as we talked. Now ADUs, if this passes, would be allowed in new construction in homes built after 1985. It's just opening up accessibility for these units in town, and no impact on existing curb cuts. So no new curb cuts would be part of the thing. So again, this is really just meant to minimize impact on our town infrastructure and just create a new option for homeowners who are looking for either additional rental income, or to allow family members or other individuals to come and rent from them or stay. So the voting implications at town meeting are, as you can see, if it passes by a simple majority, the planning board's updated accessory dwelling unit bylaw will replace the existing accessory apartments bylaw. And accessory apartments is just kind of like the old-fashioned name for accessory dwelling units. So it's a name change that we are including in this update. But if it fails to pass by a simple majority, we'll still be allowed. ADUs will still be allowed in Dover. So there's no, this is not a question of whether or not ADUs should be allowed in Dover, but rather how do we tweak the existing bylaw to make them more accessible and available to more residents in town should they want that. So that's the quick and dirty introduction. I'd love some feedback from all of you around, we can talk about the bylaw itself, certainly, and the various pieces of the puzzle, but, how we present this is really important, because we want to make sure we're addressing the key issues and not glossing over them, but also, aware of the reservations people might have about this bylaw change, or what it might mean for their own property or, their neighborhood. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I do have a little appendix of some benchmarking of other towns that we could possibly include in that, because I think that gives people some comfort. There's a lot of towns across the Commonwealth and certainly in our little area of the Commonwealth that are already allowing these. Wellesley just passed a bylaw update in 2022. I have some frequently asked questions. I also have a document that we'll post on the town site once we get it clear, which is literally like 3 pages of FAQs having to do with size and driveways and parking and what about my septic system and all of those other issues that people care a lot about. So I baked a few in here, but I'm not sure I really want to get into FAQs in the presentation, but I'm happy to do that. And then I did do, I saw Laura, what you had seen as well. This is just a little look at, I think one of the things people often raise is, oh my God, now we're going to get overrun by ADUs. And we just have some research from Needham, a study that was done in 2017, looking at sort of adoption of ADUs in like towns. Not all of these are exactly like, certainly Newton is not like Dover, but just looking at even in a place like Newton, since their bylaw was passed 20 years previous to 2017, so 25 years ago, but at the time 73 had been built over a 20-year period, so 3 or 4 a year, certainly not an overrun of ADUs. So I have that information, but I'm not sure if I want to bring it up in the presentation, and I'd love your feedback on that. So that's the presentation.
I thought that was excellent. It was a great it's very clean, I feel like, in the way that the information's presented. Addresses the kind of the top issues. I guess if you could just remind me, if we pulled this obviously because there was a decent amount of pushback. Could you just, and I think I know what the pushback was, but if you can just remind me what that was and kind of where those items are addressed on here, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I think that the biggest, I would say that probably one of the things that was problematic in 2022 was this idea that, and this has been really changed. So I think this is a really good question you have, but we were proposing that the planning board become the special permit granting authority for ADUs. And we are the special permit granting authority for wireless structures in town, but typically that special permit granting, it does sit at the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we were looking to change it and bring it to the planning board. And truthfully, I don't think we did a good enough job communicating about that in the run up.
The Courtney thing and all that.
What's that?
That was the Courtney thing and all that, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that was one. Another piece that was problematic, and I think we probably all agree on that. And then Housing Choice came along and it kind of resolved this anyway, but there was really no limit on the size of these things. So there was like a percentage of the size of the primary dwelling. And so, you could theoretically, especially in a town like Dover, where we might have like a 10,000 square foot home being built, and have a 2,000 square foot or a 2,500 square foot ADU built, looking at the bylaw language that we had previously. And there was significant push that I think rightly so. And so that was another important piece of the puzzle. There was a little bit of talk that we needed to be a little bit more clear about the role of the Board of Health and the whole septic and water situation. So we've tried to really bake into the language the clarity around the fact that, bang it over your head, like, Board of Health, don't even bother if you don't have the Board of Health, that approach. So we've tried to organize and structure the bylaw language, and we've worked really hard, not only with Nina, but certainly Laura and her expertise, but also an outside consultant who's written bylaws like this for other towns. And so we worked with her as well on the drafting of this language.
Great.
You miss anything, Laura or Carol, that was sort of problematic for us in the past?
Sorry.
I think so.
The one I had a question about, and maybe maybe this is addressed somewhere, or maybe this wasn't a problem in the first place, was I thought that maybe there was sort of concern around, I don't know, we create a raft of Airbnb.
Yeah.
Right, where that's all the places are being built to do, or
Yeah.
That I suspect you're going to get that question. So
Yeah, for sure. Actually, it's so funny. Literally like 5 minutes before this meeting started, I took the short-term rentals out of that this chart because I was like, I don't want to bring it up. But I think you're right. And it probably needs to go back in because it's a very good question. Short-term rentals are defined as rentals 30 days or less. And in Dover now, we actually the Zoning Board of Appeals is the special permit granting authority that has sort of like oversight of short-term rentals. But I think we don't allow them without a special permit. And I think in other towns, they say like, well, we'll address that in another bylaw. You know, we might want to address short-term rentals, but it certainly is not a bylaw that is meant to encourage short-term rentals. But regardless, the Zoning Board of Appeals retains the oversight of anything having to do with rentals less than 30 days. And as I understand it, Laura, we don't allow them.
I'm just looking it up. You have a definition for them.
Yeah.
So.
And I know that I forget where it is, but it's in the regulation of use or whatever that table is. They're in there.
Yeah, you allow them by special permit.
By special
in
permit.
Any of the residential zones. And then I don't believe you have any. You don't require site plan review for them.
For short-term rentals.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine we would require, well, why would we site plan review for a short-term rental? Because it's not really it's not like a structural change, but the site plan
Yes.
review is a part of the approval process for a detached or attached ADU. So if somebody's sort of building it with that intent, we're a piece of the puzzle, but then they'd have to get approval for that from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
So the message really is that we're not changing.
We're not changing it. Exactly. And that's the language I had originally put in a row here and I took it out, but you're making me think, George, that I definitely need to add that back in. So I'm going to do that. Short-term rentals.
suspect that's going to be a hot button again.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I'm not sure my answer there, it just has to be crisper. Like, no, it's either yes or no. Like, I think the intent certainly is no, because nobody wants that in their neighborhood, to be quite honest. And so I think that I don't want to get tripped up on that language. So I guess maybe Laura, you and I can come up with maybe I'll work with you to come up with the one-liner. Short-term rental, the intent here is not for short-term rentals, and anybody interested in placing their ADU into a short-term rental pool would have to get a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals, period. That's not changing. I think that's the answer.
Yeah, but how?
And to go back to the goals of this, which is to provide options for caregivers and multi-generational families and kids that want to come home and live separately.
Yeah. But in the end, that could be a legitimate piece of pushback.
Exactly. That's the thing, we all know
intent.
the intent, and I appreciate that because I wouldn't want that either, but it's kind of like a separate bylaw, and it's actually one to consider. So
Yeah.
I think if you wanted to, you could in that list of all the standards at the end where you have the size and the owner occupancy and all those other things, you could probably spell it out.
You think? Are you talking about in the
not to
bylaw
be
itself
used
or in the
as
rules and
short-term
regs?
rentals, period.
Say again, Laura.
Oh, I'm just saying you could spell out that these shall not be used as short-term rentals.
Would you put that in the bylaw or in the rules and regs?
Oh, I'd put it in the bylaw.
Okay, I think we should consider it because I think
Would
that's
make people feel much better about this.
yeah, I think I didn't know that was an option for us. So if that's true, then I'm down for that because I think you're right, George. I think that's an easy fear. Well, it's not even, it's just a fear, and it's kind of like the low hanging fruit of fear. And we want to pluck those and not make people fearful. Thank you.
I thought the rest is great, other than just a little, I think there's a typo in there in one of these, but I don't know if we want to go over that now.
Sure, love to. Do you know where it was?
It was towards the beginning, one of the first 2 or 3s. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Also, I want a better picture than the lower right. I don't know. It just doesn't feel like Dover to me.
Yeah, keep going, keep going. Maybe it wasn't the first couple. Yeah.
This one, this slide is just like so it's like
What?
so many words on the page.
Well,
bums me out.
it's not going to work well at town meeting when you think about the size of the.
Exactly. It's
territory
just
and
too much.
everything else.
What I tried to do in terms of how I talk about the slide is not to go through it, but just to be like, as you can see here, we've been at this
Right.
since 1986,
Yeah.
and then really focus in some maybe it's just from a design perspective on this piece, but like we've been working carefully.
Right.
And I
Exactly.
think if we leave it, it would be that. So we'll think about that.
I kind of like this is it.
This one.
Wait, it
Oh,
was
the square foot there?
it was the lesser of what was it, 900 square feet, and no,
Oh, you know what? You're right. I think I saw that too.
it's
let's
the
see.
wrong lesser, I think is used. It's
Yeah, here it was here. Lesser of.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You're right.
Wow,
I
good
saw that when I
catch.
was reading it. That's so funny.
So it's
So it should be
LESSER, I believe. I think.
of 900 square feet.
In other words,
Or-
lessor is a
Like a
lessee, lessor, right?
like a leasing agent or something.
Right.
All right, I'll look at it.
Somebody who's renting an apartment is a lessor.
Or I could say ADUs must be 50% of the primary dwelling size or 900 square feet, whichever is less, because that's actually better English, like
Yeah,
that
there
more
you go.
people would understand. So 50% of primary or 900 square feet. Okay, I'll work on that, but thanks, George.
I would also on the slide, the very last, well, not the very, the second, so slide 9, I think it is,
Okay,
if it doesn't pass. So if it fails to pass, I think it's important to remind folks that we already allow, because you talk about it through the
Yeah.
press, we already allow ADUs.
okay, so
But
ADUs,
for some reason, we don't allow ADUs in houses after 1985. Right.
basically
That's why-
something along those
I was
lines.
talking to the neighbor the other day and he said, what? We allow?
Yeah,
them?
it's
What's- he
crazy.
said, what's so special about 1985? I said, you've been trying to figure that out too. You know?
Exactly. I can get one, but you can't.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Okay, that's a great one. Thanks, Carol.
So Carol, say that again. So you can have an ADU in Dover, but only if your house was built before 1985?
Yes, you can have it as long as your house was legally occupied on January 1st, 1985.
Hmm,
Okay, so it had to have been built before, December 31st, 1984.
Right.
And it cannot have been substantially enlarged since then.
Hmm.
And I don't know who's the decider on the substantially enlarged. The other thing is we have this cap on the total number of ADUs that exists in our current. We don't actually even count the number of ADUs in Dover, which is kind of funny that's in the bylaw, but there's no mechanism for actually counting. Obviously, assuming this passes, we want to do a better job counting moving forward to see how adoption of it goes. But
So Jody, a house that's built in 1984,
mhm.
can that have a detached ADU added to it? Or is it just attached that's allowed?
To my knowledge, it's either because we allow attached or detached. I think so.
I'm not sure. Hang
No, but the
on.
original said it wasn't detached, right? Wasn't it only attached? I thought.
It was? Well, I'll have to look at that.
Maybe
I
I'm wrong.
was thinking, Jody, what about when you go to slide number 8?
Mhm.
I really like that one because it's very simple and very clear. And I'm just wondering if you maybe had already considered having a section that talks about the ADU bylaw that we have right now on the book,
Mhm.
and then next to it, the ADU bylaw that's being proposed, so people might be able to see. this
Yeah.
Not that you have to, maybe you've already looked at it. and
Yeah,
didn't
no,
feel
I've
like it
tried
was-
to do that. We actually did a line by line crosswalk of the two.
Mhm.
And it's a good point. Like, what are the key differences? It gets a little clunky. Like, I don't think I could bake it into this chart. I could do one like this, which is sort of or maybe to your point, like I could add a column that's sort of like existing, new, You know what I mean? So you could have a comparison of these elements.
Yeah, 'cause
in the
I'm just
old
thinking
versus
if-
the new.
Yeah, with your, the comment that you made about people may be concerned about these being used as short-term
Mhm.
rentals or just having some concerns at all. Maybe once they see that what is being proposed is not radically different from what we already
Right.
have, then maybe that kind of buffers
Yeah,
those
that's a good idea.
concerns.
So I could do it, Val, kind of like, let's see, I could make, I'll have to obviously,
Yeah, I mean, and you can think
play
about
around
it.
with it, but
It's
yeah, no, I
just,
get it. Cause it's like if we just added a column and it was kind of like new and I'll do it something better, but just kind of compare them. And if you think about it, the only thing really that changes is that attached ADUs would be by right
yeah,
versus special permit.
right. So you're actually
Um,
making it easier for
Yeah, so that's
people,
an
for those who
easier.
are
And
interested.
then one, short-term rentals doesn't change it. ADU size, we can look at that, Laura, but I don't know what the size requirement was. The answer would be, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be dramatic. The big thing is they're by right for attached and they're still special permit. And by the way, we could have taken this and tried to kind of beat the door again on, making them by right in detached as well. But we felt like just that was probably, something that people in town wouldn't want, or, maybe they like a little more oversight and we don't want to get into trying to remove an oversight, from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So we're just trying to kind of thread the needle on what was going to be the most appealing to the most people.
Right.
Okay,
So
it's a great suggestion. I'm going to play around with that a little bit. Thank you.
if someone right now has a house
Mhm.
that has an in-law suite that
Mhm.
they are thinking about now turning into an ADU,
Mhm.
and it's a home that was built pre 1985.
Mhm.
And however, the caveat is it's larger than 900 square feet.
Mhm.
What happens there?
That was your question at another meeting, the larger question. And I think that is a question for the Zoning Board of Appeals, because
Okay.
they would have to grant a variance to the bylaw.
Okay.
So.
Or they would have to know about it.
Or they would have to know.
Why,
about it.
why would anybody inform anybody?
If you already have an in-law suite, but maybe if you want to add a kitchen, Carol.
Well,
Right, like-
I assumed the in-law suite had a kitchen, so, okay,
Okay.
so.
Oh, sorry.
Right.
Yeah. So if it was
Okay.
just, kind of like a bedroom and a bathroom, but now you
okay.
want to add a kitchen and make it like a rentable
Yes,
unit.
okay, right.
Mhm.
Okay, sorry, yep, right.
I think that would be the issue, because it's attached. So that means it would go through site plan review. And when the plans came to us and we saw that it was larger than 900 square feet, I think that would trigger a denial. Or what would that trigger, Laura? So you've asked this question a few times, Val, so thanks for bringing it up again. Like, what would happen in an attached structure? We'd see that it was larger than 900 square feet and we'd say, well, we can't sign a site plan for that because it's too big according to our rules and regulations in the bylaw. Like, we can't
Yes.
approve it. And so then the person might say, okay, I'm going to go to the zoning board and get a variance. Is that how it works?
Well, it could theoretically, but I don't know what the zoning board in Dover is like, but they're supposed to be looking at things like, is there a unique topographic issue? Is there a hardship it can't be a self-imposed hardship, like, I bought this property and I need more income to,
Right.
To support it. It can't be that kind of a hardship. So there are some pretty strict standards for granting a variance, and some zoning boards really don't like to grant them very much. But getting back to what would probably happen practically is they would come in, they would hopefully have a floor plan. If not, they would be able to get a floor plan, and you'd sort of work with them so that, they might have to change some walls around or
Mhm.
something, but you'd work with them so that they would wind up with something that was self-contained, that was 900 square feet. Because honestly, if you're talking about a couple, 900 square feet is not so tiny.
Mhm.
I happen to have lived in a 913 square foot house at one point, and it's, 2 bedrooms, living room, small kitchen. It's really a decent size for 1 or 2 people.
Right, which is the intent here,
Yeah, which I
Um,
think is really the intent.
But I
Yeah.
see your point, Val. It's a very good question. It could likely come up because somebody has a really big unfinished basement, right? With a stairwell access to the basement. And, look, we have big houses in town. You have 1,000 square feet in your basement, right? And you want to turn it into an ADU. What happens then? And I think Laura's answer is precisely on target. And maybe, our review process at the planning board really needs to require a floor plan with square footage. I mean, I think it would.
Yeah, I think we have that in those
In
draft
in those-
regs.
exactly, the regulations. So
I
it
mean,
would,
it's never going to be all things to all people.
right. Right.
Yeah, I'm just thinking if somebody has questions outside of these parameters, the other question I could see somebody asking is, okay, if I want to turn my, some area in my house into, like, over the garage into, an ADU, maybe it's already an office and now they want to turn it into an ADU or something.
Yep.
Will I be taxed differently?
Probably.
Because we want people to register their ADUs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a benefit to our community to know that we have them. So I'm just thinking I can see this question coming up. I feel like everything boils down to how does it affect my taxes?
Right.
So it's really not so much as taxed differently as assessed differently.
Okay, sure. That's a good
Right.
point.
And
when
right
you pull a
now, even
building
though we have a
permit, right?
bylaw to the point that was raised before, we have a board of assessors that doesn't track ADUs. So
So as of right now, no.
but it's a great question. And, Laura and Jody, it's something that you might want to meet with the assessor on and talk to the Board of Assessors about.
In what way? Like, what would we be talking to them about? Please track these, or what would
What is your
happen if?
Right, what's the answer to the question?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
it's not-
because
it's not a-
my understanding is that anytime you pull a building permit, it triggers an assessment change, right?
Well,
I
I
think-
guess the reason I'm asking is I'm just wondering, like, let's say somebody, like I said, has an office above their garage and they don't need it as an office anymore, but now they're thinking, oh, well, maybe I'll rent it out. So they're not adding square footage because it's already finished. Maybe it's already finished. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mhm.
don't know if they would necessarily have to make much of a change, but so I was just,
You'd have to file for a building permit if you do it above board, right? Because there'll be
Yeah,
electrical
right.
issues and plumbing issues and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
right? Even if you're staying within the walls.
right.
And those building permits, which have a value on them, okay, do get, I believe.
Yeah.
Submitted to the
Right.
assessor.
That's what triggers,
Right.
like, oh, you just improved your house.
Exactly. So,
But we'll
That
find
is-
out, Val.
that
Good
is-
question.
That is true, Carol. The building permit does go to the assessing department and they take it from there.
Good. Okay, that's
Regarding
great.
the dollar value of the construction
Improvement. Yep.
improvements, yes.
Presumably, the rental income would more than offset the taxes.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, how do we encourage people to report their ADUs and
Right.
actually bring them to the board?
well, it's like anything else, I think,
Right.
it depends. on the-
Bathroom.
It depends on the extent of especially for the attached ADUs, right? So it
Mhm.
depends upon the extent of the renovation, if you will, that's being done to make it an ADU.
Right.
And then whether people are above board or not,
Right.
right? I mean, I have 2 extra bedrooms in the basement of my Cape house that no one knows about.
Mhm.
Right? But you can always find
Oh, they're gonna
contractors
know in
to do it
24
right.
hours, sister.
So,
I bring
we
this
know
up
we have
because
that.
we recently looked at a place down in Newport and it's recorded as a 2-bedroom house, but it's clearly a 3-bedroom house.
Yeah.
So I'm like, huh, interesting. And it's been a long time that they've had 3 bedrooms. So I'm like,
It's on your mind. It's a good
Yeah.
question.
A
It's a
lot
good
of
question, but
these,
again, it's like one of those things, I think one of the things about this bylaw is this bylaw update, and so often we find this, but like it oozes into so many other things, you know? And so
Right.
we have to anticipate the question, so thank you for raising it, but we can't solve all the problems of Dover,
Sure.
right? Like the fact
Sure.
that our assessor's office doesn't track bylaws is like kind of problematic, but something that we need like the assessor's office to address, or, you know, so we're trying to kind of thread the needle and make this available, accessible to people, and then, you know, trust that people will do the right thing. Just like we trust that people are going to do the right thing when they renovate a bathroom, right? If the right thing is to pull a building permit, you know what I mean? And that doesn't
Sure.
always happen either.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, people will bring up all these issues if they don't want it because they're scared that all of a sudden we're gonna get inundated, okay, with renters. But I bet you 5 or 10 years from now, we'll look at the inventory, assuming we're tracking it. Okay. And the vast majority, okay, will be caregivers,
Yeah.
Mhm.
elderly parents,
Yeah.
kids returning home, an aunt or an uncle, a friend of the family. My house has been used several winters in a row. We call it the divorce house down on the Cape, you know? Where do the guys go when they get kicked out of the house? Oh, we can do this one, have staying on the Cape.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's all that kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
Versus, you know, all these renters that are coming from wherever, right?
Right.
Right.
It's
Right.
just to me a fear thing, because, you know, once again, every other city and town seems to find a way to get this done. But this is great, Jody. I will remind you of one thing,
Yeah.
and I'll have a better answer for this later. I think next week when we have another meeting with the town meeting work group. It used to be that presenters at town meeting had 10 minutes.
Okay.
And then basically the mic would be turned off.
Wow.
Recently, I believe, and this is what I have to check. Recently, I believe that Jim Repetti reduced it to like 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
So I will make sure to find out.
Okay. Thanks.
We
And
have,
then I'll work
we
on it.
actually have a Zoom meeting that's trying to get scheduled for Friday mornings on this week or next week. Anyway, I'll find out for you what his limitation is.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And then we'll back
because-
into it. The other
Exactly.
thing is, I think, you know, we're going to ask Felicia once we're ready. And I would say probably, I don't know, Carol, what your recommendation is on this, but up on the town website, we'll have this presentation, and that could be a little longer, you know, and then we could
Oh,
cut it
yeah.
back a little bit for town meeting, but we can kind of add all the bells and whistles. And so the presentation and the FAQs and the draft of the bylaw will be up on the town website. So I can put as much as I want up there, but then cut it back.
And
to
then
like
call
4
it
slides.
exactly right. And that's basically what Laura and I both also said to Scott as he was working on the
Okay.
slides for the floodplain, is put everything you want because it'll go on the website.
Yeah. When are we shooting for that? Do
Okay.
you know, Laura, Carol or Laura, you know, like
So-
would March 1st, like, do we,
As soon as it's ready. So the hearing is March 13th, so it needs to be up there by then. We have a meeting of the working group, town meeting working group with all the article sponsors.
Mhm.
I think in a week and a half towards the end of February,
Okay.
to make sure that everybody else has done what we've already done, which is presentations and FAQs and
Yeah.
everything else, okay? Because the powers that be are very, very anxious to improve the ability of those that are interested to find the information and get educated before
Okay.
town meeting.
So let's say March 1, like we're going to
March
try for
1,
March
sure.
1. Okay.
Yep.
So that'll be good.
Yep.
And I'm waiting for feedback from the zoning board of appeals. Carol, you're waiting for, we've already talked to the health agent, but I know you're working on the board of health.
Yeah, so just an update on that. The Board of Health doesn't have a March, they don't have any more meetings this month. They have a meeting, they had a meeting scheduled for March 6th, but then they realized that it was also town caucus night. So they'll probably move that meeting. So at whatever meeting, the earliest meeting they have in March, they will be taking a vote to support the bylaw.
Okay. So that would be great because then
We
we
already
can,
know that they approve of the wording of the bylaw that gives them the authority that they need.
that's great. And I'm just looking right now, but I did ask Alan Fryer the same. The Board of Appeals does not have any meetings scheduled at the moment. In order, so I asked them for their feedback. I asked it for them to get us their feedback, obviously, as soon as they can, but certainly before the 3/13 warrant committee meeting, but hopefully well before then, because obviously that's going to be important. So we're working on
Yeah,
that
I
as
mean,
well.
yes. Right.
Good. Okay.
I think you've done an amazing job of outreach to the ZBA. So at some point, we do need to get that resolved, but.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I would also mention that on April 7th at the Council on Aging Board meeting, we can present the ADU to get their support. So Jody, if you can add that to your calendar.
And when are those meetings typically, day or evening
I
or?
think they're during the day, I think, but I'll have to check.
Okay.
It's not posted yet, so.
Okay.
So we'll have this, hopefully we'll have the COA support, we'll have the Board of Health support, hopefully
Yep.
we'll have the ZBA support.
Yep.
Um,
Board of Selectmen, once we have this final version that we're comfortable with, the plan is I'll reach out to each of the Board of Selectmen just to make sure they're, aware of what we're up to as well. And I think, I'm trying to remember, Carol, we talked about, just trying to individually talk to each one of them as well.
Yep, sending them all the documents and then
Mhm.
sitting down with them, yep.
So that's where we're at. So if anything, if you guys have other thoughts, we've got a few tweaks on the owner occupancy issue, but we'll send around a link to the Google Doc where we're baking in all this additional comment and feedback that we get back. We're going to obviously have it go by Nina again with some of those changes, but pretty good progress.
Gordon, what do you think? If I could put you on the spot.
I don't know if he's still here.
Oh, no, I
Yeah,
don't see
I
him.
think it seems it's pretty clear. I like the presentation. Being short obviously is good, being clear, and I thought you guys did a really good job of that. Or Jody did a good job of that. I think you guys are. I think it's good that you're sort of going through and thinking through what questions might come up.
Mhm.
I think this is I think this is sort of, it is relatively straightforward, I think, but preparation, is always a good thing, it's always good to be ready just in case.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think you're well aware of sort of a lot of the things that would come up. The rental piece is one that also occurred to me, or that I've heard before. I think this is pretty good. Thanks for asking for input.
Thank you. So
Appreciate it.
Laura, would you, I'm going to send you a link to the Google Doc where I've baked in your changes from earlier today. And can you add that short-term rental piece of the puzzle?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we're pretty close. So I would say, when is the logical time to go back to Nina? I think we should wait and hear from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
We really need their input.
Yeah,
We can't have what happened last time.
right.
One quick question. This is
Yes.
Gordon again. Sorry, Carol, did you get my text?
No, sorry.
Oh, the
Let-
one
let
thing.
me- Oh, sorry, let me take a look. Oh, are you 774-567? Ah,
Yes.
okay. My phone beeped, I didn't know the number, so I didn't. Okay,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Carol, not sure if you are all collaborating on Google Docs, but we were advised that can run afoul of open meeting law.
Yeah.
So,
So,
yeah, so we work all, that's the beauty of having staff. is that we work all our issues through Laura individually.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that when we were, the warrant committee, obviously we don't have staff, so, but
Right.
we had, we were told that that anytime there were multiple of us making edits on a Google Doc, that was collaborating by Nina. And so quorum, if more than 3 people, even if they did it at different times from the group, worked on a doc, it was effectively, the same as sending a group email. It was.
Hmm.
It
Does
was
that,
something-
Gordon, to your knowledge, does that include Laura as staff?
No.
Okay, then we're good because
then
we
we're
haven't
good.
done that.
Exactly,
It's,
right.
it's just been, yeah, okay, but thank you. That's great. Good to know. So we've only had Carol and I engaged on Google Doc and Laura as a staff person.
All right, sorry, I just.
No, it's
No,
great.
no,
Thanks for raising it. That's,
Because I wasn't, I
Yeah.
figured Carol probably had it in hand, but.
yeah, no, that's great.
No,
Good to
no,
know.
it's-
Thank you.
It's good, it's good to know, and it's interesting since the town is pushing everybody to use Google Docs.
And also since we were on with Nina,
Yeah.
editing with Nina.
On Google Docs, yeah.
on Google Doc, that's kind of funny.
I love
Yeah,
it.
that is bizarre, because she
Yeah.
made a real big point. Like,
That's
she
so
came in and
funny.
Gave us a briefing on it, and that was like one of her big hit points, was like.
That's amazing.
do
Maybe
not
because
ever
it
do-
was maybe it was just because it was Carol and I and Laura. And so she wasn't worried because it wasn't a larger group, but that's really funny.
I know,
Yeah.
we have a similar issue actually, like for on the recycling committee where we don't have staff. So we have to be very, very careful because there's really no central point,
Mm,
just members. So it does make a difference when there's staff support as well, just from an operational standpoint.
okay. Well, thank you all. Thanks for that. I guess Laura, you will then not use Google Docs to send this around to the board, which you did not today. You sent it as a Word doc, so that's great. In advance of this meeting, but you and I can talk about how we share back with everybody with these updates that you're making. Although I don't know that that's even actually necessary because you guys will see it at the next meeting and then we'll have it posted on the town website. So,
Right.
okay, thanks everybody. Thanks for
Great.
all that
Thank you.
input. That
This
was really super helpful. Thank you.
And Jody, it's a great
Terrific.
presentation, absolutely
Thank you.
great presentation. Yeah, never mind. Okay, so with that, we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the appointment of Janet Bowser to the Tree Preservation Project. Val?
Yes, so thank you. So she wasn't able to attend our meeting tonight, but she did get approval from the Conservation Commission. And the reason this came up is because Christy Violin, who originally had expressed interest and we had approved her to be on the tree committee, has now had some issues come up where she has just a time conflict and just doesn't have the capacity to manage it. So Janet Bowser said she would be very interested in stepping forward as the liaison on the committee for the Conservation Commission. And Janet is the current wetlands agent for the Conservation Commission. I believe she has also previously been the agent in Wellesley before she was here in Dover. And she's involved in a variety of climate initiatives and ecological initiatives in her own personal life as well as with our community. So I think she would be a fantastic addition to this group. So we ask for her support, your vote tonight to add her to our committee. The only piece, Carol, that I think I just
Yeah, I
texted
just
you
saw
is,
that,
yeah, so,
Not a problem.
okay, perfect.
So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to vote to appoint Janet. And by the time that information gets up to the Board of Selectmen, since they have to approve the appointment as well, hopefully by that point, Christy will have made her resignation.
Finalized all of her things. Okay, perfect.
So let's see, I'm going to make a motion to appoint Janet Bowser to the Tree Preservation Committee. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second,
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Jody Shu,
yes.
George Sidgwick,
Yes.
and Carol has been yes. Wonderful.
Thank you.
And I agree. I think she's going to be a great addition.
Yeah, she will.
Fantastic. Yep.
She just has a amazing amount of knowledge. So I'm really looking forward to getting her support and help on our committee. I think she'll be great
Great.
giving us guidance.
Super. Excellent.
Great.
Anything else while you're in the hot seat here? Anything else to let us know about?
We haven't met yet. We actually meet this Wednesday, and we'll be getting at least the start of the report from all of the feedback that the community provided on the 4th, February 4th, and preparing the Conway School is preparing a presentation to faculty at the Conway School about this project. And that'll be on February 24th, and it will be via Zoom. So I'll pass that along as soon as I get the Zoom links for that. But those are the two big pieces that we're working on right now, is getting the feedback, and we're going to set the date for our next public forum, which will be early March. And then we'll get going with putting together the content and the structure of that meeting.
Wonderful. Fantastic work being done. That's great.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other comments or questions about the VALS initiative? Okay, next item on the agenda is an update on the Village Center initiative. Laura, do you have an update? There's really not much to say. I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I think we put that on when we thought Bill was going to be at the meeting.
Okay. The only thing I would say is that I did sign the final invoice today when I was in the planning board office. So Ted's work is done under the current contract. And Laura has been in touch with him to thank him for all those efforts and the material.
They were fantastic.
Yeah, he was wonderful.
And now I'll turn it over to Laura for any other updates and comments, etc.
Let's see. One thing I wanted to ask everybody and anybody, if you need a paper copy of the zoning bylaw, to let us know, because I made one for Bill over the weekend, and well, Sue made it, actually. Thank you, Sue. So it's just kind of a nice thing to have to, leaf through and find the site plan review section. And then, it's sometimes a little easier than looking online.
I'll
So I
take
just-
one. That'd be great.
But
Okay.
Sue handed those out, didn't she, in the yellow binders? No?
She may have, yeah,
I might have
You know,
moved since then. Sorry, Sue.
back a while ago.
I did a master purge.
That's
Sorry.
okay.
In a frenzy, that might have gone.
Happens all the time. So so that's good. And I sent something around about a new Chapter 40B application. It's actually a reapplication for these 4 lots around Trout Brook and Edgewater Drive. It's kind of unusual because there are 4 separate lots. And I think in a way it's kind of constructive to have the affordable and the market rate units not all in one group, to have them more distributed, through a neighborhood, so that it's not so obvious that, oh, that's where that housing is. So just letting you know, if any of you are interested in going on the site walk, it's February 15th. I believe it's at 9:30, but just, send an email and I'll let you know, and I'll let you know where to go.
And wear your rain boots, because it's very wet property.
Yeah, it is.
So just maybe it's a good time just to, Laura, if you could just quickly update us all on the process for the 40B. What the next step
Sure.
is.
What has triggered the site walk is a preliminary review by the Mass Housing Finance Agency. They have to approve the financing for the developer. It's not an actual application to the town of Dover yet. But this is a good point if people have issues that they feel should be addressed, like the amount of wetlands on the lots or anything else. This is a good time to raise those issues.
Mhm.
It's unusual that you can get the state to turn down the financing, but it's happened. So, if people knew there was a lot of flooding in that area, for instance, that would be something to make the state aware of. So there could be issues to bring up. So this is going to happen. And then within about, probably 60 to 90 days, the town might get an application, or it could take longer than that, but it's not going to be immediately followed by an application. Because it has to, go through the state agency.
And the application goes to the ZBA. Who is that?
That's right.
Right,
Yeah.
so the ZBA, like with Red Robin, the ZBA is the point organization for this. And they will, once they get the application, they will be then sending out a notice to Board of Health, Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Town Engineer, whatever, for comments. And we will have the opportunity to basically do a site plan review type look at their application and report to the ZBA.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I also just, sorry.
No, I
Somebody-
just said, okay, yeah.
Any
go ahead.
questions? Okay. Just a very quick, kind of superficial type update on 16 Haven Street, because it really it isn't always very helpful, in terms of the fact that you have to deal with applicants later on to really get in depth, with his application. But I did want to let you know, I did have a conversation with Jonathan Fryer today. He is planning on providing all the information that, that the board has asked for. And we're also really trying to narrow down the focus of his meeting with the planning board to just considering whether it should be a modification or a new site plan review. And that's really all that's going to be in front of you at this meeting on the 27th.
Okay.
So then it goes from there.
And Laura will be making a recommendation to us on that point
Oh, great.
as
Okay.
well.
And I think that's about it.
Okay, I just have two things. One is that the digital town newsletter that Ruth Townsend does every month. We have a deadline of this weekend to put something in for the March newsletter.
Mhm.
February newsletter, we had a wonderful summary of the tree preservation work. And I think couldn't for the life of me, with the search capabilities of the website, find the January newsletter. But I think we had the ADU.
Yeah, I put the
January-
ADU in either January or February. I can't remember which one it was.
So it must have been January then, right?
Okay.
So, so the question is, do we put anything in the March newsletter?
Sure.
What would you suggest?
Couldn't we just say coming soon? Like, here's what's coming to town meeting? Like a paragraph of these are the two articles the planning board is bringing to town meeting.
Okay.
I wonder, I don't know,
Well,
check the
no, it's
website.
good. And I will check to see if somebody else is doing that. It could be, right?
And check the town website, maybe even
Okay.
with a link to wherever
Okay.
Felicia puts them. We probably won't have that yet, but click here to
Yeah.
view
Okay.
information.
Okay. Okay,
It might be helpful.
okay. Yeah, we haven't mentioned the floodplain at all, and I think in the newsletter.
Oh, yeah, then that would be a good one.
Right, so, yeah. Okay, and I just wanted to quickly review the calendar. So our next meeting is on February 27th. And we are hoping to finalize the floodplain language to the bylaw. Laura and Scott are meeting on Friday, I think, via Zoom, also with Eric, who gave that great presentation at our last meeting, to get all that finalized and then get it over to Nina for final. So hopefully we'll have that done by the 27th, at which point that too will be ready. And Scott's been working on the presentation as we've made changes to the bylaw. So hopefully at the end of the meeting on the 27th, that too will be ready to be posted onto the website,
Mhm.
like the ADU. And then, of course, the Car Club, did you have a chance, Laura, to take a look to do a little bit more thinking about the calendar on whether the Car Club will be on the 27th or March 6th? I'm just looking at the schedule that you,
I think part of it depends on whether or not you advertise. You have generally advertised site plan reviews, but that takes like another 2 weeks plus. So that would put it into sometime later in March.
okay,
Um,
okay. Why
you
don't
know,
you,
so
we'll talk about it a little bit more on
yeah,
that.
let's talk about that some more.
Okay, and I just want to remind everybody that March 13th is the warrant committee open hearing. Jody's going to be giving the presentation on the ADUs, and I'll give the presentation on the floodplain since Scott can't make it. And that's
Wait,
where we
March
are. Moving
13th
along.
or,
March 13th.
oh,
open hearing.
and March 1st is just the prep meeting?
March 1st is a presentation to the warrant committee,
Right.
just the
And-
warrant committee. Not the
Okay, so
open-
March
open hearing.
13th is the open hearing
It's the
of
open
the
hearing.
warrant committee.
Right.
Right. Okay, got it. I just,
Right,
I have them
currently,
both.
currently the open hearing is scheduled to be in person, but been a request to reconsider that, and they're trying to put together a meeting for Friday morning among the working group for us to talk about that. And whether it's gonna be Zoom or in person, so
Okay.
TBD on that. March 1st, the warrant committee meeting is by Zoom,
Right, okay. I don't think we have a Zoom link for that, right? Yeah,
not yet, right?
okay, got it.
Carol, I have the town caucus as being March 6th. Is that?
It is, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and what we'll do is, I think the caucus starts at 7:30.
Hmm.
So we'll work the agenda to get a couple of things done from 7 to 7:30. And then we'll sign on to the caucus.
So that's on Zoom?
So excellent question. It's probably in person, right?
Yeah, that would be my guess.
So that's going to be a little bit more difficult. Because Jody has to run down to townhouse.
You're saying if we, well, oh, right, because if that's in person, right.
Right. I mean,
Well-
you can take the whole thing from, we can give you the key to the planning board office and you can.
Exactly. I could just bring my
Yeah.
computer down there. I'm sure I can get on the Wi-Fi
Yep.
down there. We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Yeah. Yeah, so we have March 1st for Jody and me to go to the warrant committee. We
Mhm.
have March 6th for the meeting and town caucus, and then we have March 13th for the warrant committee open hearing.
Mhm. And then we have March 27th too, right? Just a regular meeting?
Then we have a regular meeting on March 27th, and we will probably be holding a planning board public hearing, which will be a meeting that we all need to attend for the for review of the bylaws.
So that is probably the 27th?
No, that'll be April 3rd
Oh, sorry.
or April 3rd. We, you know what? We'll have Laura send out the new calendar.
Okay, because I have April 3rd and 17th on my
17th.
calendar for
17th is
April.
back for backup in case we needed more time. over
Oh,
the
got
3rd.
it. Okay.
Okay,
Okay, open hearing.
we'll have Laura update it and get it out.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
anything else?
The miracle.
Okay, rolling back. Well, my dog's just come in, so I guess he needs to go for a walk. So with that, thank you all. We're rolling right along. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:09. Do I hear a second?
Second,
Take a roll call vote. Jody Shu,
yes.
George Sidgwick,
Yes.
Carol Lisbon, yes. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Good
Good
night.
night.